Sure, here is section 1 of the script with a minimum of 760 words, written to be tight, emotional, and to the point, no fluff or repetition. In alignment with infidelity storytelling principles, I used to believe I had everything. A stable job, a cozy home, and a wife I'd vowed to love forever. We met in college. Lena was sharp, witty, and had this calmness about her that pulled me in instantly. I proposed on a rainy afternoon after graduation, and she said yes without hesitation. 7 years later, we were still together, but something had changed. I just didn't know it yet. The shift was subtle at first. A quietness in our dinners. Shorter answers. Less eye contact. I chalked it up to stress, mine, mostly. I worked in IT and often lost myself in late-night coding sessions. She'd always understood that about me. But recently, she seemed disconnected. Not angry, not cold, just, somewhere else. She started going out more. At first, it was innocent. Yoga ran late, or I grabbed dinner with Sarah. I trusted her. I had no reason not to. But then, I started noticing patterns. She'd come home freshly showered, even though she'd said she just got back. Her phone never left her hand, and she'd angle it away from me when she texted. Once, I asked who she was messaging so late. She paused too long and muttered, "Just a friend." I didn't press it. I didn't want to seem insecure. But inside, something twisted. One evening, she came back from the gym wearing perfume. Not strong, but noticeable. The same scent she used on our anniversaries. I asked her about it. She laughed it off. I ran into someone I know and didn't want to look like a mess. I nodded. But my stomach sank. Something wasn't right. I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. The woman I fell in love with felt distant, like she was speaking from behind a glass wall. I began staying later at work, not because I needed to, but because home didn't feel the same. That's when Zara, a coworker of mine, started picking up on my mood. She wasn't intrusive, just observant. "You've been quiet lately," she said one afternoon, handing me a coffee. "Everything okay at home?" I wanted to lie. Say it was just work stress. But I looked at her and said, "I think Lena's hiding something. Or maybe I'm just paranoid." Zara gave me a look I still remember, compassionate, but grounded. "Trust your gut," she said. "But don't jump to war without proof." That sentence stuck with me. I didn't want to be the guy who snoops. The guy who doubts his wife. But I also couldn't shake the unease in my chest. It got worse when Lena started locking her phone. She never used to. I noticed a new password on her laptop. One night, she left the room to take a call. I overheard just a few words. Her tone was softer than I'd heard in months. Intimate. I couldn't make out what she said, but it wasn't how you spoke to a friend. She came back, pretending nothing happened. I didn't mention it. But I couldn't sleep that night. That weekend, she went to a wellness retreat. Alone. Just one night. I offered to drive her. She declined, said it was a personal thing. I smiled and said okay. She packed light, just enough for one night. As she left, she kissed my cheek. It felt mechanical. That night, I sat on the couch, phone in hand, mind racing. I didn't want to be this guy. But I opened her tablet, one she rarely used anymore. I remembered the passcode. It hadn't changed. There were no messages. No apps. But in the browser, I found a synced calendar entry. Dinner, 8 p.m. Rooftop. Daniel. I didn't know a Daniel. I stared at the screen, the time blinking at me. 7:38 p.m. She wasn't even an hour gone. My heart started pounding. A part of me wanted to close the tablet and forget. Let it go. Pretend I hadn't seen it. But another part, the part that had been slowly breaking for months, couldn't ignore it. I sat there, silent, staring at that name. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew something inside me shifted that night. A slow, quiet tear ran down my cheek. Not because of what I'd seen, but because I already knew everything was about to change. I just didn't know how much. Sure, here is section 2 of the script with a minimum of 760 words, continuing from where section 1 ended. This part focuses on the betrayal, confrontation, and emotional fallout, Written clearly and directly with no fluff or repetition. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before turning the key. The calendar event replayed in my head. Dinner. Rooftop. Daniel. I didn't even know where to go, but something told me to start with the rooftop lounge downtown. It was one of Lena's favorite spots. We'd been there together before. That made it worse. When I arrived, I stayed in the car across the street. I could see the patio lit by hanging lights. Then I saw her. She was already there, sitting at a table with a man. Tall, athletic, clean-cut. He leaned in too close. She laughed in a way I hadn't seen in months. Her hand rested on his. My breath caught in my throat. There it was. Undeniable. All the doubt I'd tried to ignore collapsed in a second. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I watched them sip wine, flirt, share a kiss like they'd done it before. Not awkward. Not guilty. Comfortable. Familiar. I took a photo. Not because I wanted revenge or proof for anyone else. I just needed to confirm to myself I wasn't imagining things. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel like it could hold me together. I felt something in me crumble, quietly but completely. I didn't follow them when they left. I couldn't. I drove home in silence. My hands were cold, but I was sweating. Everything felt unreal. The same woman I held every night, the one who once cried happy tears when I surprised her with a weekend trip, had been kissing someone else like I no longer existed. She came home just after midnight. I was sitting in the kitchen, lights off. When she saw me, she froze. I didn't say anything at first. Just looked at her. She put down her bag slowly and asked, "What are you doing up?" I asked her how dinner with Daniel was. She didn't speak right away. Her face changed, confused at first, then pale. Her mouth opened but no words came out. I repeated the question, quieter this time. She sighed. Sat down. Rubbed her hands together like she was buying time. Then she said, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I asked her how long. She said 4 months. It started with texts. Then lunch. Then more. She said she felt alone, that I was always working, that she tried to talk to me and gave up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just listened as she poured out excuses dressed as explanations. She said she didn't plan to fall for him. That it wasn't physical at first. That it just happened. I asked her if she loved him. She didn't answer. That silence hit harder than anything else. She asked if I hated her. I told her I didn't know what I felt. Numb, mostly. Angry in waves. Embarrassed. She started crying. Not dramatic. Quiet, like shame dripping out slowly. She said she still loved me in some way. That she was confused. I told her confusion doesn't lead to hotel rooms and kisses on rooftops. Decisions do. I didn't stay the night. I packed a bag and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out. I drove to my brother's place and slept on his couch. I stared at the ceiling for hours before I closed my eyes. Her voice kept looping in my head. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. Over and over. The next day, I ignored her calls. She texted me long messages I didn't read. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want explanations. I just wanted silence. I'd lived with doubt for so long that when the truth finally came, it didn't feel like shock, it felt like confirmation. I spent that day replaying our years together in my mind. Birthdays, vacations, late-night movie marathons. And I questioned which parts were real. Which parts she'd faked. I realized I'd never really know. That was the hardest part. She sent me a message saying she'd end it with him. That she wanted to fix things. But I didn't respond. I couldn't unsee what I saw. I couldn't unfeel the betrayal. For days, I didn't eat much. Didn't talk much. Just sat with the weight of everything. I kept checking the photo I took, like proof that it happened. Not because I needed it for anyone else, but because a part of me still didn't believe it. Even with the truth staring me in the face. One night, I deleted the photo. Not out of forgiveness. But because I didn't want it defining me. That image wasn't who I was. It was what happened to me. There's a difference. That night didn't just break my heart. It cracked my identity. The person I was before, the husband, the protector, the man who trusted, was gone. I didn't know who would come next. But I knew I couldn't go back. Here is section 3 of the script with a minimum of 760 words, written with precision and emotional clarity. This part focuses on recovery, self-discovery, and personal transformation. No repetition, no fluff, just clean storytelling with emotional weight. The first few weeks after I left felt like walking through fog. Every day bled into the next. I couldn't focus, couldn't eat properly, couldn't sleep without waking up mid-dream expecting to see her next to me. But she wasn't there. And I didn't want her to be. I kept telling myself I had to keep moving. Not for anyone else, just for my own sanity. I went to work, smiled when people spoke to me, nodded through meetings. But I was somewhere else mentally. Everything I thought I knew about my life had collapsed, and I was standing in the ruins, trying to figure out where to begin. Zara checked in more than once. Never pushy. Just real. She brought me lunch one afternoon and said, "You don't have to talk about it, but you do have to talk eventually." I just nodded. The silence was heavy, but it felt better than pretending. A week later, I finally opened up. Told her everything. She listened without judging. When I finished, she said something that stuck with me. "You didn't break because of her. You broke because you kept trying to hold it together when it wasn't yours to carry." That hit me harder than I expected. I decided to start therapy the following week. I needed something that wasn't just temporary distraction. I didn't want to numb the pain, I wanted to understand it. Therapy wasn't easy. Talking about betrayal, about trust, about all the things I ignored for years, it forced me to look inward in ways I'd avoided. I realized how often I minimized my own needs just to keep peace. I'd been so focused on keeping the marriage stable that I didn't notice how unstable I'd become inside. I started doing things just for me. Not out of rebellion, but restoration. I bought a used bike and started riding every weekend. I journaled. I cooked actual meals instead of living off takeout. I turned off my phone after 9 p.m. The silence started to feel less like a punishment and more like peace. Lena reached out once more after a few months. She sent a long email. She didn't ask to get back together. She just said she was sorry. That she'd lost herself. That what she did was inexcusable, but she hoped one day I'd understand why she fell so far. I didn't reply. I read it twice, then archived it. Not because I was bitter. I just didn't need anything else from her. The closure didn't have to come from her. It came when I stopped waiting for an explanation that would never be enough. One evening, I was walking home from the grocery store and realized something strange. I wasn't thinking about her. I wasn't replaying the past. I wasn't holding on to the betrayal. I was just walking, breathing, and present. That felt like a victory. I started reconnecting with people. Not in big ways, just small check-ins. A coffee here, a dinner invite there. And I noticed I was laughing again, actually laughing. Not the polite kind you give just to move conversations along, but the kind that catches you off guard. That's when I knew I was healing. I didn't become some perfect version of myself. I still had moments. Triggers. A song. A smell. A random date on the calendar. But they passed. They didn't control me anymore. They reminded me of who I was and how far I'd come. Zara and I remained friends. Nothing more. She respected the boundary. She never pushed, never hinted. She was just consistent. And in a time when everything felt unreliable, that meant something. I never told her, but she played a big role in helping me feel like a person again. Months later, I went back to the rooftop lounge. Not for revenge. Not for closure. I just wanted to reclaim it. I ordered a drink, sat alone, and looked out over the city. I remembered the night I saw Lena there. The pain felt distant, like reading an old chapter. I realized I could think about it without flinching. That night, walking home, I knew I had finally let go, not of the memory, but of the weight it carried. She made a choice that changed everything, but I made a choice too, to keep moving, to keep feeling, to keep healing. One night did change my life forever, but not just because of what she did, because of what I did after.